Hi all, in this video we are going to understand loops inside Flow but with a real-time problem and with a real-time example with the solution. But before getting started, if you're not feeling confident before going to any interview and you want to have one-to-one mock interview with me, you can have it by clicking on the top mid link below in the description. So let's get started. So the problem is that it's a real-time problem which you will most probably face. So the problem is that my tech lead or my manager is saying that there are too many contacts. Okay, there are too many contacts with the name test. So for an example, if you see, I have one contact with test for video, test contact. I have this test contact, and one more contact that I have is my test or something like that. So I have multiple contacts with such names, right? Test, my test, and all that stuff. So what my manager is saying is that if you find such kind of contact, just update their name, email address with @invalid.com. So for an example, right now, if the email is lala@gmail.com, for an example, so what I need to do is I need to update all such contacts with test@gmail.com. Okay, so that's what we want to do. But now we are going to solve that problem with the help of Flow. The reason is tomorrow it can be instead of test, it can be manager might ask delete all the contacts starting with XYZ or ABC. So the name and the values can change. Right now it's test, but it can be something else as well in the future. So for that problem, we are going to use ScreenFlow, and we are going to use ScreenFlow in a much more easier way, and we will much more pictorial way. Okay, so if you see the complexity within this is, first of all, the complexity is you have to rename the email, right? lala@invalid.com, flow@invalid.com, and the contact which do not have flow at all or which do not have email at all, don't update it. Okay, if it did not have email, why are you updating with the new email? So okay, so basically all you have to do is you have to find all the contacts with test and update it with the @invalid.com. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to create a flow right now. And it will be a screen flow because I will be taking input from the screen. Okay, so I will be taking input from the screen. So what do I want to find? I want to find contacts with the name test or something else. So that's the reason why I'm using screen flow, where user will give the input what kind of contacts they want to rename. And instead of auto layout, I really like freeform. That's why I'm going to change it to freeform. Now the first thing is I have to take the input from the end user, right? I have to basically take the input from the end user, which contact they do want, like emails has to be renamed, right? For which contact. So for that, user is going to give input like starting with test or that any contact that contains test. So user can give the input for that. So for that reason, I'm going to pull screen over here, and let's name it as contact name. I'm going to name it as contact name. And to take the input, I'm going to write input over here, or let's say text over here. And inside this text, we are going to use enter details. So inside this input box, user can put any name that they want to and things will work. Okay, it will take the input, and whatever you're going to put inside it will be stored inside this API name called as enter underscore details. Okay, so if I'm putting Salesforce in 5 minutes inside it, it will be stored inside enter underscore details. If I'm putting Salesforce anything etc XYZ, it will be stored inside enter underscore details. Okay, that's done. Next thing what we need to do is, let's say inside the screen someone puts test. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and find all the contacts having name test, right? So to do that, we use get records, get contacts based on screen. So here what we are going to do is we are going to find the contacts with the name that will have the name same as that of we have provided inside the screen. So object over here would be contact, as we have to search contact, and the condition would be that if name of the contact contains, okay, we are not going to use equals to because we cannot find perfect match of it, right? It can be contains. So any contact which will have contains test inside it, like test flow or test Salesforce or something like that, we have to find such contacts. So that's the reason why I'm using contains over here. Next, whatever input I was going to provide inside that input box is stored inside enter details. If you remember, see enter underscore details, and let's click on done over here. So I'm going to connect both of them. So what's going to happen right now over here is whatever I'm going to put inside this, okay, will be stored inside enter underscore details. And we are going to go ahead, like let's say I put test, we will try to search, we are trying to search all the contacts that contains this test, name contains test. Okay, now we are not going to find only one contact, we are going to find multiple contacts, right? With the name test itself, I can see there are around 3 contacts in front of me. Now there can be more than this as well, but right now I can see 3 in the screen. So there will be multiple contacts with the name test inside them. So that's the reason why instead of using only the first record, I am going to use all records. So all records will store all the contacts within with the name as test, containing the name as test. Now once I find all these contacts, I need to store it somewhere. Okay, to have more granular manipulations, I'm going to store it inside a variable. So to have more granular control, I'm going to select choose fields and assign variables advanced. Here I'm going to create a variable. Let's create a variable. Now this variable, why am I creating this variable? So whatever context that I'm going to find, I have to store it somewhere, right? So I'm storing it within this variable. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable. Let's say get contact details. Data type would be record because I'm going to store contacts inside it, right? So that's why the data type should be record and object would be contact. Now one more important thing is that this variable is not only going to store one contact, but it's going to store multiple contacts, right? It's just not going to store one contact, but instead it's going to store multiple contacts. That's the reason why I'm going to use allow multiple. So now this variable is capable to store multiple contacts. It can be 5, 6, 20, 25, whatever it might be. It can store all the contacts within itself. Once it is done, let's click on done. Now as we found the contact, one of the most important thing, if you remember, that I want to update the email, right? I want to use this email field further. So that's why I'm going to query the email field inside it. So right now, what I've done is I've taken the input from the screen. I found all the contacts. I've stored it within the variable. Now, let's say I'll give you a real-time example along with this. This is a basket of apple. I have multiple apple over here, okay? Sorry for my drawing, but consider it this way, okay? If I have multiple apples inside it, okay? Now I have one more box, okay? If I ask you right now that take these apples, okay, and remove the peel, like remove the cover from that apple and store it within the another box or store it within the same box itself. But right now, let's say we have to store it inside the another box. What would you do? You won't take your hand, take that peeler and put it within that box and you will rotate it. It does not make sense at all. But instead, what are you going to do is you are going to take one of the apple, each of them one by one. Okay, you are going to peel it off. Okay, let's name it as peel right now. I'm going to name peel. Okay, and then once it is peeled off, okay, I'll put it within a small box so that it is segregated. Okay, small box, a single small box which will store only one apple at a time. Now once that is done, I will put that box within the another box so that every apple that I've peeled is separately segregated and I put it within the another box as well. So here I will have the another box which will have the peeled apple, right? So simply what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take the apple, I'm trying to peel it off and then put it inside the small box and again put it inside the another big box which will have all the box together. Similarly, if I want to go for another apple, I'll again take this, peel it off, put it inside small box and again do the same thing for other apples as well. So right now if you see, I'm picking up each of this apple one by one to process. I cannot process all the apples at the same time. Similarly, in Salesforce or any coding language, you do the same thing. If you have multiple records, okay, you have list of records. If you have multiple records, you have to pick up each of this record one by one, just like this, and you have to process this record and you have to store it. Pretty simple, right? So right now, if you consider it in our real-time example, we have multiple contacts similar to this apples, where it is, yeah, similar to this apples that I have multiple contacts. I have to find out multiple contacts with name test. Out of this, each of this contact, I have to pick up each of them, and then I have to replace their email with @invalid.com, and I have to store them. Pretty simple. Okay, so let's replace it with the contacts, the multiple contacts. So to process each of this record one by one, we need loops. Okay, so I'm going to use loops over here, looping each contact. Next, you have to provide the collection variable. So if you remember previously inside the get record, I created a collection variable named as get contact details. Okay, from the first item to last item, the iteration will be from the first record to the last record based on the sorting. Okay, so let's click on done. So over here, if you compare it with the drawing right now, I have picked up using this loop. Okay, I have picked up one of the apple or one of the record at a time. Now what I need to do is I need to process that record or peel, or we can say we need to rename the email, right? If the email, first of all, we have to check whether the email is there or not. For an example, if there was no email at all, why would we process? It does not make sense at all. So if there are no emails, first of all, we need to check whether there is email within that particular contact or not. So let's see, check if email exists. And I'll say email exists. And I will go to the current loop variable, that is the looping variable that I have. From the current contact that I'm looping right now, I will pick up and I'll check whether the email is null, false. This means there is email within that particular contact. So if there is email, okay, I have default outcome as well. Default outcome, I will use it that if the email is not there. Okay, so let's connect this both. So what I've done is, out of each of this contact that I'm going to pick up one by one, I'm checking whether there is email or not. If there is email, we will proceed further. But if there is no email, then it does not make sense for me to process the same record. Okay, it does not make sense. I just need to skip that record. So for that, I will again come back to the loop. Email does not exist, that is default outcome. Okay, in case of default outcome, if email does not exist, we'll again go back to the loop so that I will pick up the next record. Okay, so this is fine. Now when the email exists, we will proceed further, but if email does not exist, we will again go back to the loop to pick up the another or the next record. Okay, so now let's move into the path where the email actually exists. Now if the email exists, what you need to do is, let's consider it this way. Okay, I have lala@gmail.com. I'll zoom in a bit inside the email, right? So if I have the email, okay, what I need to do is I have to replace it with lala@invalid.com. That's what we have to do, right? From the gmail.com, we have to replace it with invalid.com. So that's what we have to do. So for this purpose, you have to use a formula field. Okay, so let's write the formula field quickly. Formula to get valid email. Okay, so what are we going to do is, first of all, let's understand formula. Inside this formula, what are we going to do is, first of all, we need to find where is the at the rate. Okay, as soon as we find at the rate, we have to store the left side of it. Okay, whatever we have it inside the left, we'll store it as it is, and whatever is in the right, we have to replace it with invalid.com. Pretty simple. Okay, so basically what we have to do in any email, let's say we have test@gmail.com, gmail.com, this kind of email. Still, in that case, we have to find the index. Where is this at the rate gmail, at the rate a symbol? As soon as we find at the rate, the left side of it we will keep it as it is, and the right side of it will be replaced with invalid.com. Okay, so first of all, let's try to find the at the rate within that thing. Okay, let's data type would be text, and inside this function I'm going to use find. Inside find, I will remove the start num. Inside this form find, inside the search text, I'm trying to search at the rate. Okay, and the text from which I'm going to search is the looping variable, right? Loop, current loop, email. So whichever current email or whichever current record that I'm looping on, I'm trying to search within that email where is at the rate. Okay, I'm trying to get the position where is at the rate. And as soon as I find it, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write one more formula at the bottom so that I can combine it later on. There's something called as left function. Using the left function, you can you can get the left part of it or right part of it if you are using right, but right now I want the left part of it, right? So I'm going to use left function, and inside this left I want this everything after at the rate or before at the rate, I want the left part of it, right? So for that, first of all, inside the text, text I will provide, which part do I like, from which part do I want the left from. I want it from the looping, right? Left of what do I want? Left of this looping email address, and the position from which I want will be provided by this find function. I'll check the syntax. So basically what I'm trying to do is, left, I'm using the left function, left of what? Left of the whole email address. Okay, left of the whole email address. But from which position? This position is been given with the help of the find function. The left of at the rate, and the left of at the rate will be lala@gmail.com. Lala at the rate. Just this part I will get. Now after that I have to apply invalid.com. Okay, I will get the left part of it, but after that I have to concatenate invalid.com. For that purpose, let me first of all remove the space. For that purpose I'm going to use plus and invalid.com. Let's click on check syntax, and it's perfectly fine. Let's click on done. So our variable formula to get a valid email is ready. Next thing what we need to do is, if you remember, we have peeled it off. Okay, we using formula field we have processes the record. Now what I have to do is, I have to put it within the one box. Okay, and once it is put it within the one box, I have to put it inside the big box which will have all the apples which are peeled off. Okay, so to do that I'm going to use assignment over here. Assigning, okay, assigning emails. So here I'm going to create a single variable, okay, just to store, as I've talked about one box, right? Whatever contact I'm going to get, processed contact I'm going to get, I'm first of all I'm going to store it within the single box or single record. Okay, so for that purpose I'm going to create a when variable. Let's name it as single contact. Data type would be record, and object would be contact. Here I'm not going to check allow multiple because it's a single contact. Okay, simple. Now inside, out of the single contact, first of all, in order to replicate, first of all, I'm trying to do is, inside the single contact, what I will try to do is, I'll try to clone the contact that I have. To clone it, I'm going to single contact dot id equals to the looping variable that I have. From this, I'm going to put the id, that is contact id. Using this, what I have done is, inside single contact, I have mimicked, or I can say I have cloned the current looping contact. After this, I need to update the email inside the single contact, that is single contact email, and that would be updated with the help of email formula to get email. Okay, using the formula to get valid email, I'll get the valid email address. And once all this thing is done, once I have put it within the small box, I have to put it within the larger box at the end. So for that purpose, I'm going to create one more variable, final contacts to update. Now this variable again will be of record of type contact, because we are trying to store contact inside it. And now, as this contact, or as this variable is going to able to store multiple contacts, so that's why it should have allow checkbox checked. Now once that is done, click on add, click on OK, and then use add function and assign the single contact over here. So basically what you did over here is, you peeled off, you did all the processing, you put everything within the single box, that is single contact. Once you did that, next thing what you did was, you added that whatever box that you created inside the another box, the bigger box. So that's why I'm using add function. Okay, let's click on done. And whenever the email exists, we have to do this kind of processing. Once we have found the email and all this adding and all this thing is done, we have to move to the another contact. Once everything is done, we have to move to the another contact, right? Once this peeling is done, once it is added to the new box, once it is added to the bigger box, then we have to go and pick up the another apple or another record. We have to process it, put it in another box. Again, we have to do it the same way. So that's why I'm again reassigning it to the loop. So it will pick up the next contact. Now once everything is done, every contact, every record is been processed, at the end of it, I want to update. So that's why I'm going to use update records, update all contacts. And here what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use this collection variable final contacts to update. So if you remember over here, Whatever updated contacts I have, whatever updated contacts that I have with the email address, I added it to final contacts to update. And same contact, I'm going to update it over here as well. Okay. So once the overall loop is done, all the contacts are processed, I am going to use this. That is after the last item. Once the last item of contact containing test is processed or found or looped, I will go and update the final contact over here. Okay. So now let's save it. Flow with loop. Let's name it flow with loop and let's click on save. Right now I'm going to debug it. So right now, as you can see, I have multiple contact with test right inside them. So in simple words, this Lala it should get updated to lala@invalid.com. This should also get updated to @invalid.com, but this should not get updated at all because it does not have email at all. Okay, so let's give the name. Let's debug it, and I'm going to give the name as test. Let's click on next, and overall processing is done. Now let's see whether the contacts are updated or not. I'll reload the another record till that point. It's taking too much time. Okay, it's processed. Let's see. Yeah, the email is updated successfully. Yeah, lala@invalid.com, right? So as we processed or as we debugged our flow, automatically all the contacts which had test within themselves, the email has been updated to lala@invalid.com. Okay, let's see the contact which did not have any email at all. Did it get updated or did it not get updated? Let's check it out. I think it's taking too much time. Okay, so as you can see, as it did not have any email at all, so nothing got updated, even though it had test within that. So our flow is working perfectly fine. If I see the same contact, the another contact which had flow@gmail.com, I think so it will take some time to load. But yeah, it's working perfectly fine. The flow is working perfectly fine. So this is how you can write a flow with the loop along with the formula field. If you found this video helpful, I request you to please like this video and subscribe to my channel.